Is Astra Militarum secretly good? This week they finished at 39.6% on 120 games, ranked 26 of 28 across the whole edition, and roughly 40% of their losses came by blowout. And yet, this same week, they won 2 events. Not once. Twice. That's the paradox we're opening on. And by the end, you'll see why both of those things are true at the same time. 6 lenses on 1 week of data. Let's look. This is the Infinite Archives read on ISO Week 28. Join us and embrace the data. Data is infinite. Understanding it is divine. The field this week ran to 30 events and 2,381 games. 2 super majors carried most of the volume. The Path to Glory Open at 195 players, and the Vienna Summer Major at 90. Field average win rate came in at 49.24%. 6 lenses on the same field. Win rates, scoring margins, blowouts, top finishes, representation, and the composite strength index. And a paradox to open with. Astra Militarum won twice. At the very top, Deathwatch shows 60.5%, but on 19 games. That's a placeholder, not a read. You put the N next to the percentage, or you don't say the percentage. The real top of the table is Orks at 58.5% on 229 games, the largest sample up there, with Adeptus Mechanicus and Eldari just behind on much smaller samples. Then Thousand Suns at 53.9 on 181, and Tau Empire at 53.8 on 302, the biggest in the field. The middle band flattens hard, and most of that ordering is noise, not signal. The bottom is where the story lives. Blood Angels at 36.8 on 155, Chaos Knights at 38.1, and Astra Militarum at 39.6 on 120. 2 things travel with the whole table. Every Wilson 95% band overlaps the next 2 or 3 factions' bands. The ordering is what it is, but the spacing is not a separation result, and small samples publish the loudest swings. The biggest event with full standings this week was Ironweld. 73 players, 5 rounds. Orks won it, and the list is about as on-brand as Orks get. Green Tide with the Tactical Brigade, Take and Hold, 1990 points. Gazkul as Warlord with Makari attached, Wazdaka, 2 war bosses, 3 pain boys, 3 big mechs, and a datasheet floor of 4 20-strong boys blocks. Orks sit at rank 2 across the whole edition on 600-plus games, and they deliver a blowout in roughly 40% of their games. This win is exactly what the composite would predict. Second event of the weekend. Shark Tank Winter. 64 players, 5 rounds. Necrons, piloted by Liam Hackett. Awakened Dynasty, Take and Hold, 1995 points. The core is Wraith Spam. 3 attached units, each a Technomancer with 2 Crypto Thralls, leading 6 Canoptech Wraiths, plus a Lockhust Lord with a Veil of Darkness leading 3 Heavy Destroyers, and a Reanimator to stitch it all back together. Necrons sit at rank 5 across the edition on nearly 1,000 games. This is a textbook read. A rank 5 faction, a solid sample, wins a 64-player event. No paradox here. And here is where the video pivots. Astra Militarum won 2 events this week. Dreammaker GT, 50 players, Tucker Ricky, a Siege Regiment list. And W4, Western Wisconsin, 26 players, a different pilot, Nemo the Fish, a Recon Element list. Now look at the 2 lists side by side. 2 different people, the same 8-character shell. Cadian Castellan, a command squad, 2 Tempestus command squads, Gaunt's Ghosts, Lord Marshal Drare, an Ogren bodyguard, and Ursula Creed, down to almost the same data sheets. That is not a faction turning good. That is one archetype, a shared net list. Good enough that 2 different pilots independently brought it and won with it in 2 different rooms. In a week, the faction went 39% overall, rank 26. 40% of games lost by blowout, and it won twice. Hold that tension. And it points at something bigger than one faction. A win rate is not a property a faction owns, like a points cost. It's a lens, a surrogate for strength, and in a young edition, it's an imperfect one. What these two lists show is the value of expert players who can filter the noise, read a rule set, and build the thing the average player hasn't found yet. So two truths sit side by side. Astra's win rate is genuinely low, and there may be builds and play patterns this edition hasn't uncovered. Both are true. This faction just isn't for the faint of heart. 3 winners, 3 positions in the field. Orks at rank 2, delivering the blowouts you'd expect. Necrons at rank 5, solidly anchored. And Astra Militarum at rank 26, winning twice with what looks like one archetype. Pilot signal on both Astra tables, but 2 data points is not 2 independent samples. It is one archetype being piloted well in 2 different rooms. That's the disciplined read the next section draws the frame around. Now set this week against the whole balance period, every game since the edition opened on June the 15th. The winners are boringly consistent. Orks and Necrons sit within half a point of their edition-to-date rate. The loud movers, Eldari up 7, Blood Angels and Death Guard down 5 or 6, are exactly the small sample swings the disciplined read warns about, and every one of those weekly bands overlaps its edition band. And here's the detail worth holding. Astra this week, 39.6, actually sits below their edition-to-date 42. This wasn't even a good week for Astra by their own low standard, which makes 2 wins from the same archetype more striking, not less. The disciplined read. Take last week and this week side by side and ask, for which factions are the 2 weeks not consistent with the same underlying rate? The honest answer is none of them. Here are Astra's own 2 weeks as Wilson 95% bans, 40% last week, 39.58% this week. Those bans overlap heavily. That does not mean nothing happened. It means 1 week on this many games cannot separate a real meta shift from ordinary weekend variance. 2 more weeks at this volume, and we may be able to. Today's poll can't, and a video that pretends otherwise is selling you noise as signal. 2 synthesis reads. First, where the samples are firming up. Except this week they aren't. Not really. The largest samples in the field carry half widths of 5 to 6 points. Even the top of the table cannot be split to a single percentage yet. Second, where there's no read at all. Deathwatch, Imperial Agents, Genestealer cults, each under 60 games. You read those with an in-first mindset, or you don't read them at all. The bands overlap for every rank-adjacent faction. The ordering is what it is. The spacing is not. Win rate alone misses the texture. 4 lenses on the same games. Top 3% finish rate, who reaches the very top of their event, is led by Space Marines and Necrons. Representation, how often a faction shows up versus baseline, is dominated by one silhouette. Space Marines and TOE Empire at more than twice baseline. Remember, that measures popularity, not strength. Top 8 share tells a similar story to top 3. And blowout delivered, games won by 20 plus victory points, is led by the aggressive armies, while Astra sit near the bottom of that column. Same field, 4 different pictures. The disagreement between them is not noise. It is exactly why we run a composite instead of a single number. 3 gaps. Places the data has nothing to say, no matter how cleanly we present it. First, what the games actually are. Win rate treats an optimized list and a half-painted project army identically. Second, who chose the faction? Stronger players lift a faction's rate, and this week's Astra story is that gap under a microscope. 1 list shape, 2 wins, is a pilot, not a faction. Third, sample size in the cells you actually care about. Split the data by detachment and disposition, and you have more cells than the month has games. This week's worked example: Imperial agents at N of 6, 50% on 6 games. That is not a read. The honest entry is N equals 6, no read. Anything else is storytelling on top of dice. The strength index reads 4 performance facets, not the old signal set. Win rate at 40% of the weight, top cut conversion at 30, blowout differential at 20, consistency at 10. Stronger this week. 4 factions, led by Orks at plus 1.4. Average: 18 factions within about half a standard deviation of the mean. Weaker: 6 factions, and Astra Militarum. Sits here at minus 0.8. In a week they won 2 events. Both readings are correct. The band is a heuristic. It tells you which way the composite of 4 facets is pointing across the whole edition. The wins tell you what happened at 2 tables this weekend. The plus 0.5 lines are heuristics, not verdicts. Now that you've observed it, you are watching this video, which means whatever you take from this week's read, the top, the cellar, the 3 winners, the paradox we opened with, is now part of how next week's meta reshapes itself. You'll bring it to your list building, to the next event, to your friends, and they'll bring it to theirs. You've influenced it. A statistics site is one of the inputs to the meta. Publish a false positive, and players migrate to a faction that isn't really there. Publish a false negative, and a real option stays underplayed until the false negative hardens into received wisdom. That responsibility is why every number tonight came with its N, its band, and the words no read wherever the data couldn't bear weight. The act of observation is the act of participation. Data is infinite. Understanding it is divine. See you next week.